Well. Chapter 95 ended on such a cliffhanger that Ichikawa decided to prolong it even more with a hiatus. There still hasn't been any announcement for Houseki no Kuni's return, which was, kind of valid because our author deserves all the rest and care that she can get. Thank you so much for the amazing support for my video on 94, generating over 200 new subscribers to the channel and my first video to ever hit 10,000 views. Thank you. Thank you so much. I promised I would do a dance at 500 subs, and it'll be out eventually. I'm still learning it, although the format for this video and the future ones will be slightly different until we get a regular release schedule back. I appreciate all the new faces. Expect some form of Houseki no Kuni video every month around this time on the 25th or a few days before or a few days afterwards. As always, there are timestamps within the video, so please feel free to skip around to whatever section interests you more. With the introduction out of the way, let's talk about what chapter 95 did so masterfully well. Whether Ichikawa planned this hiatus or not, to further prolong and have the readers kind of feel the gravity of even a fraction of what this passage of time is, was a beautiful move. We didn't really see the stagnation of the 300 years that Phos was alive before the story began, and the two time skips of 102 years and 220 years. For me, unfortunately, was part of my initial binge where I kind of read the entire series and caught up within 24 hours of 8 years of Ichikawa's work, so I definitely didn't feel these time skips happen, even though Ichikawa leaves some good context clues for us to derive that essentially things don't change as time progresses. Similar to how students, when a deadline is far off, there's really no pressure or hurry to get it done sooner. So if there's no deadline with the gems and death, what's the motivation to want to do more? Even that initial pain of losing a partner subsides with enough passage of time. What does 10,000 years, which is significantly longer than any of the other time skips, means for us? Will Phos lose the pain that they are feeling right now of emptiness and rage? They didn't with the 102 and 220, but this is by a factor of 100, so who knows? Interestingly, the talk about converting a gem to a Lunarian originates from the same chapter that Phos wakes up from their 220-year sleep in chapter 79. It's sad to see Yellow is the one who's the instigator, but relevant with their character. Even the character profiles point to this, as Yellow has been attempting to push away these negative feelings that they've had for thousands of years, and how Phos can handle that sort of introspection. Granted, Phos's way of coping isn't really healthy. This machine, the gem to Lunarian transformation, kind of comes in clutch because our gems that got transported would have had to deal with similar issues as Yellow, since they're not mentally sound per se, especially with long years of introspection. And even if we have the quote-unquote long-term therapy that's a little better now, I don't think it would have been enough. Even though we don't actually see Cairngorm as a Lunarian in the chapter, it's safe to assume that they are, since every gem ever taken up to the moon has been resurrected as a Lunarian. We know that Kongo try to compensate for the variety of the gems by shaping their initial structure to resemble each other. Although flawed because of the inherent nature of our gems, this solution with the machines is kind of perfect to give true equality and freedom, as the gems and sensei and their enemies are one and the same. Going back to chapter 79, which was such a pivotal chapter for this current one, as it was the last time skip that we had, Ichikawa had some amazing foreshadowing of telling us that Phos is the next divine, especially with this kind of paneling here where Kongo attempted to pray for Phos, with Phos's head and Kongo's body, essentially telling us now that, with Phos having the right eye, has started that transformation process to become the divine. Does that mean that it took 10,000 years for Kongo to have praying powers compared to his predecessor, his older brother, the box machine? I guess that would make some sense, as it would take some time for meteorites to hit the Earth multiple times before we got to the starting point of our story, but I'm a little hesitant to fully believe this. How long ago was Kongo's doctor alive, and when did she work with Kongo as his divine? Was Kongo just a regular machine before he got the special right eye? As always, there are way too many questions whenever we learn new information. So what does the word divine mean in Buddhism? From my little research, in other religions it's only really tied to the spiritual part of the sacred thing, but here, because Buddhism doesn't separate but actually integrates the physical and spiritual aspects. Divinity can be interpreted as the value of one's life, as all expressions of life, such as the self, the environment, nature, and the body are all mutually interconnected. Phos being the amalgamation of three aspects of the divine: the body, the mind, and the spirit. Kind of like the three divisions of the humans that we have in their story. It's kind of the embodiment of what it means to be sacred, or the most valuable or most respect-worthy quality / phenomenon in our story. Just like how the Lunarians could never hate Kongo because of his divinity, the same goes for Phos now. What will Phos do during and after the 10,000 years? Even if new gems are formed during this time, I don't believe that Phos will actually go the same route and take care of them like Kongo. Phos may actually just crush them at the cliff to not instill even more burden or guilt of failure, as Phos has never saved the gems originally that they cared for. Since Kongo seemed to have an exceptional memory, would this mean that Phos will gain not only Kongo's past experiences, but also remember the ones that their inclusions quote-unquote forgot? You know, with the mindscape with Lapis, even at the edges of what was missing in Phos's memories could be dug up with proper, introspection. So 10,000 years and I guess gaining the ability to remember better could help in that, especially with the roles reversed. Will Phos even be willing to pray after so much pleading and begging for Kongo to pray? It's tough. It's tough. I mean, again, like I said in the other video, it's really hard for me to predict what will happen with my favorites because Ichikawa has been throwing in loops and still furthering the narrative in such creative ways that I'm not really expecting. So it's always a joy waiting for that next chapter, and you know, the wait for this next one, 96, is rough. It's rough. It's been a month already, but it feels like a lifetime. I guess what will be the thing that holds Phos back from completing the command of praying? Since Phos at the moment may not be as broken as Kongo was, could Phos actually direct their praying? Potentially, since Phos doesn't even know that if Kongo had prayed, everyone would have been turned into nothingness, kind of negating Phos's entire goal to get Kongo to pray. I don't know what Ichikawa will do with it, but I am interested. It also seems like KongoxEnma have had a closer relationship than I had imagined, you know, calling someone an old friend. Maybe this old friend or Enma was with Kongo's doctor, because we know that Enma wasn't part of the Chimera region or the crater where the Lunarians began with, the ones that are still remaining. Seeing what happened with Kongo might be what caused the formulation of Enma's overarching plan, as Enma freed the gems of Kongo's sense of false freedom, and Enma also freed Kongo's tight restrictions as the machine made for humans. What is Enma's freedom plan for maybe himself and for Phos? I doubt we'll actually get more backstory immediately following this chapter, since with our last time skip, we went straight into the beginning. We didn't really learn much about what happened during the time skip, or the time that passed, but we could potentially, and this is me just spitballing, but get an entire chapter of Phos just sitting around idly to show us what happened during these 10,000 years, but I don't know. I don't know if Ichikawa will actually go that way. It is interesting that ice foils, inclusions, and all the current Lunarians before the conversion all revolved around this Chimera region. I need to do a little more digging to see what kind of significance it is, but let me know in the comments down below on your thoughts on how maybe the ice foils are relevant and what we'll actually get whenever we get around to chapter 96. That's all for the video. Thank you so much for watching. And again, around the same time next month, I'll have some related Houseki no Kuni video until we get 96 and our monthly releases back. So until then, we'll just have to wait patiently with Phos's painful journey.